Jane Velez Mitchell with Jane Unchained. We are talking about a solution to the ongoing climate crisis, the plant-based treaty. We just got news reports from the United Nations saying the crisis is a lot worse than we knew. We are literally running out of time. Let's go straight out to Stephanie Cabo Bianco, who is with the Save movement. What is the plant-based treaty?
The plant-based treaty, hi Jane. Thanks for this moment. The plant-based treaty is an initiative that aims to tell all governments and individuals and also companies to sign up to move to a food system change that leaves animals outside the equation. So the idea is that by doing this, we are going to lower the emissions that are right now very, very high, as the IPCC is saying, as high as the fossil fuel emissions. So it's very important that we move to a more sustainable and healthy food system to avoid the worst consequences of this climate crisis that we are facing.
And there is something you can do. If you think, oh my gosh, the heat, the drought, the wildfires, the floods, you are not a pure victim. Let's look at one video from the Plant-Based Treaty, which is a project of the Save movement, and then we'll talk on the other side. So, Janelle Palacio Butler, who is the great grandniece of, or the grandniece of Cesar Chavez. Tell us about the tenets of the plant-based treaty. It's very simple. You can be part of the solution. You can go to the plantbasedtreaty.org and sign. I have signed. Jane Unchained has signed. We are part of this solution. What we need is individuals, such as the people watching, organizations, such as the organizations cross-posting this right now, nonprofits, corporations, and governments to sign this. And it's quite, I'd say, simple in the sense that there are three basic demands. As a companion to the UNFCCC Paris Agreement, we are urging governments to negotiate a global treaty which will include the following three principles. Relinquish no land use, ecosystem degradation, or deforestation for the purposes of animal agriculture. Redirect an active transition away from animal-based agricultural systems to plant-based food systems, and restore key ecosystems and reforest the earth. So, Janelle, break it down for us in people terms. What does this mean?
So this basically means, so first off, the plant-based treaty is modeled after the fossil fuel treaty, which asks for no new land used for extracting oil. A few people from Save Movement met with the fossil fuel treaty people, the person that started the fossil fuel treaty, and we thought this was a brilliant idea. Anita and several other people were thinking, how can we go about modeling after the fossil fuel treaty? So we thought the plant-based treaty is a no-brainer, asking for no deforestation, no more chopping down rainforest for cattle grazing. As we already see, there's a climate crisis. The rainforest is, the Amazon is producing more methane or carbon dioxide than it is absorbing. So the last thing we need right now is to just totally devastate the rest of our rainforest. So we're asking leaders to support this as part of the Paris Climate Agreement, because they're already supporting fossil fuels and saying no more, extraction of fossil fuels and, heading in that direction. But there's no mention of animal agriculture. I just watched the IPCC meeting today where they did the live broadcast of the report, and they're still focusing on fossil fuels. So if they were to tie in something like the plant-based treaty to tell people, yeah, look, we're going to be at 1.5 Celsius really soon, this is how we can do it, and talk about no more deforestation, instead of just focusing all on fossil fuels. It's just ridiculous how we're here. What is it, 2021, and we just got this report, and they're still saying no more. We got to lower our carbon emissions through fossil fuels, and no one's still talking about animal agriculture. So this would help greatly and give them a way to go about doing it.
Absolutely. I looked at the New York Times headline, this cataclysmic headline that the Earth's getting hotter, but there's something we can do. I read the article, no mention of animal agriculture, no real focus on methane, which is, yes, CO2 is important, but methane, which comes to a great degree from animals, is not being discussed. Let's take another look at a very short clip from the Plant-Based Treaty. So, Stephanie, what's the big picture with the Plant-Based Treaty? We want individuals, you watching, you can go to the plantbasedtreaty.org and sign. If you're a nonprofit, we'd love to get you on board, just like I signed for Jane Unchained, send in my logo, boom, it takes 5 seconds. When we get thousands of companies and individuals and nonprofits, as well as municipal, state, and federal governments, hopefully to sign, what does that do?
So this is a campaign to put animal agriculture on front. So if you're an individual and you're signing in, and also if you have the opportunity to meet your local governors or your national governors, for instance, you can ask them to sign. The idea is to put some pressure on this change that we need to do right now. So you can go and share on social media. You can also join organizations that are working towards food system change, because we can do this together. And yeah, that's key.
Yeah. And of course, we're talking about a world without this. Okay, 80 billion land animals approximately. And right now, the United States is literally fighting to keep slaughter lines faster, to make them faster. They're already very fast, killing thousands of animals in a very short period of time. And our own government in the United States is trying to make them even faster. So they're going in the wrong direction, while at the same time talking about, we've got to do something about climate change. And so that's why I think the Plant-Based Treaty is such an incredible, basically, vehicle to make people address the issue of animal agriculture and its impact on the climate. Now, again, the 3 basic demands are relinquish, redirect, and restore. No land use change, ecosystem degradation, or deforestation for the purposes of animal agriculture. I can tell you that just the other day, we had people in Iowa who were not vegan activists, but Iowa has so many factory farms now that it's having such an impact on the people of Iowa, an agricultural state, that they're rising up and saying they don't want any more factory farms. Janelle, when it comes to the first tenet of this, okay, which is relinquish, essentially we're saying is we've got to stop destroying forests, the Amazon, the Pantanal, and land here in the United States, in Canada, and in Europe, and all across the globe for more factory farming. Is that basically the message?
Yes, that is the message. If we go ahead and start working on that towards no more deforestation, we can see a huge decrease in the amount of damage that we're doing to the planet, because we rely on the rainforest and forest all around the world. And also with the redirect, not only are we going to be asking them to relinquish the land that they're used for animal agriculture, but also to focus on a plant-based diet. Because as we all see, that's not being discussed. Even, the UN Food Summit, System Summit, my daughter was just on there. Several members of the Save Movement were listening to these people speaking, and no one was addressing animal agriculture. They were all greenwashing. The whole UN Food Summit was a big greenwash fest. It was ridiculous. All they were doing was talking about, how to feed the world, which is very important, but and how to do it sustainably. But as we all know, there's no such thing as sustainable animal agriculture. It just doesn't exist. So they're focusing on the wrong message. And that's why it's so important for us to come out and really, really urge them not only to focus on no more deforestation, but also shifting to a plant-based food system to feed the world.
And there have been various programs like this one, Boycott Meat, was started by union representatives and people who speak for labor in Iowa during the worst of the coronavirus crisis, when slaughterhouse workers were coming down with COVID. There have been a lot of efforts to get people to wake up to this issue. What would you say if somebody, Stephanie, is sitting there saying, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I'm not a pure victim. I'm a participant. I can do something to turn this ship around so we're not just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. What would you tell them to urge them to just get active? This is so easy. You go to the plantbasedtreaty.org, you click sign up, and you sign up. And the more people and non-governmental organizations and nonprofits and corporations that we get, the bigger that's going to be. What would you tell them if you had just 10 seconds to try to make them take that action and get out of complacency?
So I would say that we are facing the biggest crisis, the biggest environmental crisis ever, and the time slot to act is very small. So these are the generations that can do something about it. And as much as we push for eliminate fossil fuels and phasing out fossil fuels from the energy system, we need to do the same with the food system. If we have the opportunity to have nutrients in a complete way with vegetable, fruits, and legumes, why would we harm the environment with animal food production if we can do things differently? So we need to change our diets, and also we need to push a transition, a social transition to plant-based. And by phasing out fossil fuels, we are not going to get out this climate crisis. And that is why we also need to push harder for this. As environmentalists, as animal rights ambassadors, we need to do this change in the society, and everything counts. So thanks a lot.
It's coming soon, and it's here today. The Plant-Based Treaty Initiative has been launched by the Save movement. You can get involved. This is going to be a global campaign, and it simply involves individuals, nonprofits, corporations, or companies. You could be a bakery and sign up. A plant-based bakery or a bakery in transition to plant-based, as well as big corporations, as well as local governments like a city, state governments like California, or nations like the United States, or other nations around the world. Now, Stephanie, where are you, and what is the mood and the mentality about all of this where you are?
I'm in South America, in Buenos Aires, Argentina. We produce food for our country and also for other countries, among other things that we do, but we are big food producers. So the government is talking about the importance of climate change, and at the same time, they are trying to push for a porcine agreement with China. And we would produce, we would be a big factory to produce pigs for China, and then probably creating all the environmental catastrophes that they had in their own country. So we are working hard to avoid this, because we will be killing animals for a purpose that we really don't need, and to contaminate our soils and our land just for, to have job opportunities. But we can do other things too. So yeah. This makes no sense.
Of course, jobs is the first excuse used to perpetuate cruelty. Whether, if you look back in social justice movements throughout the ages, jobs is always used. When women were wanting the right to vote, oh, you can't give women the right to vote because, oh, then they're going to move into the workforce and displace the men. We all know that that is a canard and that we have to remain vigilant against that kind of thinking. Would we all still be driving horse and buggies? Because it would put the horse and buggy drivers out of business if we switch to cars. When you think about it and you analyze that argument, it always fails. Janelle, as a mother of young children, including Genesis Butler, who is an Animal Hero kid, who is one of the youngest, if not the youngest, TEDx talker, you are on the forefront of the SAVE movement's various chapters, the Youth SAVE movement. We clearly can see that governments are just ignoring this because they've been co-opted by industry. I mean, we have in the USDA, the head of the USDA, Tom Vilsack, is a former leader of the dairy industry. So, of course, he's not going to be making decisions that are going to reflect animal agriculture's impact on the climate. Is that why it's so important for us as individuals and organizations to stand up and be counted?
It is so important. And I always say, which I've learned actually through my daughter's activism, is that we do really vote with our dollars. And so people,
Go ahead.
they'll say, like, if I go plant-based, it's just me, it's just one person. But yeah, what if millions and millions of people did it? Of course, these companies are going to have to change their practices. They can't keep producing food that people won't buy if they're switching to plant-based food. So I think individual action is just as important as systemic action, because we're the ones that tell the system, look, this is what we want to spend our dollars on. And like you said, unfortunately, money is the way they go when it comes to making decisions. So if we help them out and show them, look, this is what we want. We want a plant-based food system, and they are listening. Just in the past few months, my daughter had been reached out by NOR, which is one of the biggest food companies in the world. The World Food Summit last year, a couple of years ago, they asked her to speak. So this message is getting out there slowly, but we can't do slow anymore, and that's one of the reasons she started Youth Climate Save, which the Youth Climate Save organizers, many are going to be ambassadors of the plant-based treaty, because this is their future, and we feel bad telling youth, like, hey, this is your future, you have to speak up. Well, we're not telling them. I think they're telling themselves that. And as adults, sometimes if we feel bad thinking like, gosh, these youth have to take it on, but they want to take this on. They are like, look, you guys, we got this, we're here to help. So there's Youth Climate Save chapters in like 28 countries now, all over the world, close to 100 members.
I want to get back to, and we love Genesis. She is my hero. I want to get back to In the Weeds, because people, maybe they have questions, they don't quite understand the plant-based treaty. So we talked about the three basic demands: relinquish, redirect, and restore. Let's go in a little bit deeper to relinquish. No land use change, including deforestation for animal agriculture. So you can see the list here. Can you elaborate a little bit on what this means and how we came up with this particular list, Stephanie? No building of new animal farms, no building of new slaughterhouses, no expansion or intensification of existing animal farms. That would prevent what you're saying is being contemplated in your country from happening.
Yes, and this is not only happening in Argentina, but this is also happening everywhere else in the world. Like if we avoid this agreement in our country, they are probably moving forward and try to put these slaughterhouses in other places too. So it's very important that we push our governments to do as they say they will with the climate crisis. They cannot talk about emissions without considering the impact of deforestation, of what it means to feed all of these animals instead of feeding directly to people that really needs it. We are using more than 70%, almost 80% of the land that we have available in the world to produce food, we are using that for animal agriculture. That's insane. And we are using most of the food that we produce to feed those animals. So it's completely inefficient, the food system that we have right now. So in this demand number one, what we could do is to ask governments to have public policies that, for instance, that put taxes on meat, or they avoid building animal farms. When we talk about fossil fuels, for instance, we talk about phasing out fossil fuels in an amount of years. So we could do things like that with also animal agriculture.
Yes, absolutely. And right now, there is so much talk about drought here in California, which I'm sure is happening. Well, I know is happening all over the world. We have parts of the Mediterranean going up in flames. I mean, climate change is not, they used to say your grandchildren, then they said your children. Well, guess what? It's here now. It's us today. And even, in my neighborhood, people are worried about flood, wildfires. I've known people who've lost their homes to fires. This is happening now. And one of the things that we're seeing are food shortages that could be on the horizon because of crop failure. When it gets to a certain heat, that really impacts the ability of crops to produce the amount of food, whether it's wheat or soybeans or corn, that they need to produce. And so we're already seeing reports in California and Idaho and Washington State and elsewhere of farmers going, oh my gosh, it's so hot that our crops are failing. And this is headline after headline after headline. And so could it come down to, Stephanie, that the human race will wake up only when the choice becomes, do we feed ourselves or do we feed 80 billion farm animals? We're already experiencing hunger globally in the third world. Here in the United States, we do have food deserts, which have to be eradicated and are a big problem, but we don't generally walk into grocery stores and see empty shelves. But is that what it's going to take for people to wake up to? Animals are eating a huge percentage of food that could be fed instead to hungry children.
So we are experiencing these consequences right now. We are seeing the devastation in every place around the world. We are seeing the wildfires, we are seeing the drought. So we cannot wait more time for that to happen. And unfortunately, when these things happen to the food producers in our country, they also ask for money to the government to fix those problems, as if things were not connected. And we need to understand that everything is important.
Yes,
But
and
yeah, we need to understand that everything is connected, and we need to change everything in order, not to have all these inevitable consequences. We already are there. So yeah.
Yes. And Janelle, what are your final thoughts on this? What would you say to get people to sign the plant-based treaty? It's so easy. If every vegan in the United States and vegetarian and veg curious signed it, wow, that would be extraordinary, because the fossil fuel treaty upon which it's based has been very successful and has gotten a lot of signatures. So what would you say to urge people as we wrap up here? What would you tell them to get them to go to plantbasedtreaty.org and sign this? It's so easy, and it could literally mean the difference between, I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but with the news that we're getting about the rising temperatures going over the tipping point with the feedback loops that will accelerate and cause carbon bombs to explode, and really feedback loops are when things get worse at an exponential level. We are barreling toward a brick wall. We just want to put on the brakes and not accelerate with animal agriculture into the brick wall. What would you tell people to get them to sign up? We've got vegans watching, people who run vegan organizations. what would you tell them?
Well, I don't want to sound harsh, but I guess now's the time to sound harsh and just, sign like your life depends on it, because at this point, as we're seeing the news, it basically does. We really need to do this and take action and join forces, vegans, vegetarians, carnivores, everyone. We really need to support this and sign. The more people that'll sign, the more they'll take it seriously. So we're looking for 10 million signatures of individuals, 10,000 organizations and 10,000 businesses in 50 cities by 2023. So we're really urging you all, it takes a few minutes, click on there, sign, and offer your endorsement for the treaty. If you're a business, we'd love to have your support, organization, anyone. We're asking anyone. I'm going to get my 7-month-old to sign the treaty. I'll have to help guide her hand, but just please go and sign the treaty at plantbasedtreaty.org.
Well, she's the most important, because she's the one who's going to have to live longer into the future, hopefully. And our future is truly imperiled. Stephanie, thank you for joining us from Argentina. What would you tell people if you had one last chance to say to people watching to go to plantbasedtreaty.org? Don't wait. Don't say I'll do it later. Do it now. What would you say?
Yeah, it's time for all of us to be activists. This is the time of opportunity that we have. We are in these moments of history with all the tools and the information and network that we have. So we have also the responsibility to make this happen. And thanks every organization, institution, and government that is signing up. This is key to, to do things differently for once.
All right, we'll play this one more time. And that solution is the plant-based treaty. If I could urge anybody and everybody to sign, here's what I'm going to say. This is not hypothetical or theoretical anymore. It is happening now. It is happening faster than anybody anticipated. There is shock among scientists as we see these extraordinary floods in Belgium, in Germany, in India, in China, and right here in the United States. And basically the collective community of scientists are like, oh, no, it is happening so fast. The UN's latest report is truly alarming. So we could sit here and say there's nothing we can do about it. We're victims, or we can take action. Of course, we don't know that the result is going to be a certain result. That's not the way to approach it. Do everything we can. And one of the easiest things that we can do is simply to sign the plant-based treaty. It is so simple. I did it. It took me 2 seconds. You go to plantbasedtreaty.org, you click, sign the plant-based treaty, and there you go. And if we get enough people to do that, we will empower ourselves so that we're not going to be pure victims. So I hope everybody watching, share out this video. But the most important thing, sign the plant-based treaty. I want to thank Stephanie from Argentina, and Janelle from Long Beach. I'm Jay Velez Mitchell, and thank you so much for joining this broadcast.